In this video, I am going to do a tier list of every single team in the NFC East and in the AFC East to predict who is going to win these two Eastern divisions. Do I geographically agree with who's in the division? Absolutely not, but I am still required to tier list it as if I did agree. So, the first team we're going to look at, we're going to start off with the NFC East. We're going to be looking at the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders are a promising team with Tyler Heineke, but they also don't have a great head coach. I gotta say, with Dan Snyder not being their owner anymore, that's probably going to help the team significantly. Everyone hated Dan Snyder, and now the Commanders have a bright future. However, FedEx Field is still a piece of shit, and that will need to be resolved in order for us to truly see anything, significant happen in this division. Ultimately, I can only see the Commanders getting a record of 8-9 at best this year. They have one of the toughest schedules ahead of them because the NFC East is just in that position of having a really tough schedule, and I don't see them being able to make the playoffs. The Commanders have not played very consistently in general. They haven't won a playoff round since, I believe, 2005, and the Washington Commanders are in this position where they won the NFC East in 2020 under a losing record and have not played very good football recently. 2020, the only reason why they made the playoffs was because everyone in the NFC East did worse than the Commanders, but the Commanders were only 7-9. That's not a playoff-worthy record, and they lost immediately in the wild card round to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, if I had to grade them on a tier list, I'd put them in the C tier. I think they play rather meh football. It's not horrible football, but I don't see them being able to get anywhere. And next, we got the New York Giants, my least favorite team throughout the entire NFL, but I gotta say, they have promise. Daniel Jones was not a good quarterback originally, and now he's a good quarterback. Why? Because of the 2022 Coach of the Year, Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll, I think, even though I think Trevor Lawrence did do a better job with the turnaround of the Jaguars, it was credited to Brian Daboll. And I'm not totally saying that Brian Daboll was disqualified. Obviously, he hated Giants, but this is not biased. It's complicated. So the Jaguars and Giants both made it to the divisional round of the playoffs last year. They were both teams that hadn't made the playoffs in numerous years beforehand. Jaguars was the first time in 5 years. Giants was the first time in 6 years. The Jaguars got the worst record in the league 2 years in a row. They went 1-15, and then they went 3-14. The Giants in 2021 went 4-13, though. That ain't much better. 2020, the Giants actually nearly made it to the playoffs. They actually would have if they could just win one more game that they wound up losing. But keep in mind, with the record of 6-10, again, it's a terrible team. And the only reason why they would have made the playoffs was because, again, everyone in the NFC East was playing like absolute crap in 2020. I think it also comes down to the Jaguars making it to the AFC Championship game and nearly making it to the Super Bowl in 2017. We nearly saw the Philadelphia Eagles take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Giants lost in a wild card round when they most recently made the playoffs in 2016. So they haven't made it past the wild card round since 2011 when they won the Super Bowl. That's why I think Brian Daboll won it. I know the 49ers head coach was also in there. For just having an amazingly consistent team with multiple quarterbacks. But I gotta say the Giants are in a good position. But what they also have is a tough schedule ahead of them, and I only see them going 9-8. Is 9-8 good enough for the playoffs? Well, that kind of depends. The thing about a 9-8 record is that if a team has a record that's 9-8, it could go either way. It used to be that 9-8 was almost never good enough to make the playoffs. Now it actually really can be, even as a wild card team. We saw the Seahawks make it to the playoffs with a 9-8 record. So did the Miami Dolphins. Not too unrealistic, but again, in a lot of cases, 9-8 also isn't good enough to make the playoffs. It really depends. But what I gotta say is that I don't know if the Giants are going to be able to make the playoffs, but they should have a similar season to this year because I see them improving in terms of their skill, but also they went from having one of the easiest schedules in the NFL to now ultimately one of the hardest schedules in the NFL. Then we got my favorite football team, the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles were the NFC Championships last year, but they ultimately failed to win the Super Bowl. Why? Because of James Bradbury and the refs, but mostly James Bradbury. What an idiot. So, oh my God, it's only 68 degrees. Anyway, the thing with the Philadelphia Eagles is that they have a tough schedule. I think I've said this multiple times, but it's true. They have a really tough schedule, and again, them having a tough schedule makes it really hard for them to really, overperform. And I'm a little bit worried about that. They're going up in a rematch against the Chiefs. I think that's going to be a loss. They have to play the 49ers. I feel like that's going to be a loss. I feel like, their game against the Bills could be a loss. I feel like the Eagles are only going to wind up with a 13-4 record, and they're probably not going to get that bye throughout the, throughout the NFC playoffs. They might have to play an away game in the NFC Championship. They might be in this position where they're not in the greatest position to succeed. That's very possible. And I'm a little bit worried about this year for the Eagles. We have Jalen Carter, we have Nolan Smith, that's very good. And we probably had the best draft in the entire NFL, despite making it to the Super Bowl. But, again, it's a very tough situation. I forgot to make the Giants. I'd probably put them in the B tier, to be honest. The Eagles I am going to put in the A tier. There is an S tier, though, which is why I'm putting them in the A tier, because I feel like they're going to be Super Bowl contenders, but they won't make it there. Now, the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are not a good team. They have not made it past the NFC divisional round since 1995, and that is when they won the Super Bowl. But again, they haven't been good since the 1990s. They've made the playoffs quite a bit, but they have not made it to even the NFC Championship game, let alone make it past the NFC Championship game. They're like the 76ers of basketball, except that I don't like their team. The Dallas Cowboys, I think, are also only going to get like a 9-8 or 10-7 record. Again, is that going to be good enough to make the playoffs? It might be. It will be, especially if they go 10-7. But again, I'm having a hard time seeing the Cowboys being that good of a team. B tier. And now for the AFC East. Again, another vibrant league. Feel like we're gonna see a bit of overhype of the Jets here. So I'm actually gonna address the New York Jets first. One of my least favorite football teams that I really hope doesn't manage to succeed, but they probably will anyway. the New York Jets. I know I kept saying they were going to go like 8, 9, 7, 10. I'm actually going to think about it a little more. Even though Aaron Rodgers probably isn't a good quarterback, he's better than Zach Wilson or Joe Flacco. And you really can't ignore the Jets' epic collapse. The Jets' defense, I feel like, is overhyped, but they did have the offensive and defensive rookie of the year last year. Highlighting that, I feel like the Jets can get a 9-8 record. I feel like the Jets can get their first winning record since 2015. Is that going to be good enough to make the playoffs? Again, 9-8 can be a borderline zone. In a competitive AFC, it might not be. I feel like the Jets are going to get the 7th seed, if anything, if they make the playoffs. I feel like there's definitely a chance for them to. But again, they're playing in a very tough schedule. And even though I keep seeing predictions about how the Jets are going to suddenly explode this year, Aaron Rodgers is not actually that good of a quarterback. The Packers did not make the playoffs in 2022. They went 8-9. And, you know, even when they did make the playoffs and had incredible seasons, they were met with postseason failure. The Jets are not making it back to the Super Bowl. And honestly, when they got Brett Favre, did not work out. Aaron Rodgers is no Tom Brady. He is no Tom Brady. He just isn't. He just is not like Tom Brady. He's not nearly as good as Tom Brady. And I feel like while Aaron Rodgers is better than Zach Wilson, they're going to struggle to seriously improve on their record. They are probably going to barely make the playoffs and get out in a wild card round, which would still be the most postseason success they had since they last made the playoffs in 2010. They're currently in the longest postseason drought of the 4 sports leagues. I'm going to put the Jets in the B tier because I feel like the Jets can, you know, make it into the playoffs, but they can't make it very far in the playoffs. All right. And now for the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are a very dynamic team. They're very good when they have Tua as their quarterback, and they suck when they don't. But Tua has frequent concussions. The Dolphins were actually nearly able to beat the Bills in a wild card round of the playoffs without Tua. If they had Tua, they would have beat the Buffalo Bills. 7 would have defeated 2 for the first time in NFL history. And the extreme closeness of that game, it really signals a new Dolphins. The Dolphins have not made it past the wild card round since the year 2000. They just haven't. And this is their first time making the playoffs since 2016, but it was also their 3rd consecutive year with a winning record. 2020, there were 3 teams who didn't win the division who still finished at 11-5, and that's why the Dolphins were kicked out of the playoffs. The Ravens finished 11-5. The Colts finished 11-5. The Browns finished 11-5, and the Colts also finished 11-5. But that's the order of how they got their placement. You know. So with that, the Dolphins, who are 10-6, failed to make it, and then we have the case of the what's it called? Of the 2021, where the Dolphins again 9-8, and it's not good enough to make the playoffs. Although I will say their 9-8 record in 2022 was, and again they've been doing very good with Tua, very bad without Tua. I feel like a healthy Tua can catapult the Dolphins to a 13-4 record. That is not an overestimate. And I don't even like the Dolphins. I think they're cheaters. By tampering, which I know the Sixers have also done, but they've done it worse. The Miami Dolphins are capable of being a good football team. They really are. They're really capable of doing so. But what's holding them back this entire time is Tua not being healthy. And if Tua keeps going on his concussions, I only see them going 9-8. maybe even 8 and 9, considering how hard this is. They need Tua at full capacity if the Dolphins want to succeed. And unfortunately, I failed to see it. I'm thinking more like a 10 and 7 record for the Dolphins, enough to put them into the B tier. Probably going to make the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to be able to win a round in the playoffs. New England Patriots, yeah, they're probably going to suck. The Patriots used to be the best team in all of football. But that's when he had Tom Brady. Then he went to the Buccaneers before he ultimately retired. Tom Brady led the Patriots to 6 Super Bowls. 2001, 2003, 2004, 2014, 2016, 2018. Those are all the seasons in which the champion of the Super Bowl was the New England Patriots. And that's really good that Tom was able to do that. But after that, you're in a position where they're not really, that good now. 2020, Patriots get dragged to their first losing record in over 2 decades. Over 2 decades, they have a losing record, finishing 7 and 9. The Patriots failed to make the playoffs. As a matter of fact, they were eliminated in the third to last week. Now, the, what's it called? Oh, right, 2021. 2021 was a year in which the Patriots were at one point the number 1 seed in the AFC, back when they were 9 and 4. But they wound up having a bit of a collapse, and they finished 11 and 6. So maybe, I don't think they were 9 and 4. I think they were like 9 and 3, or maybe even 9 and 2. No, I think like 9 and 3. They were at one point the number 1 seed in the AFC. But they wound up getting demoted to the wild card round and landing at the 6th seed. And then they lost to the Bills. The Bills actually had a perfect game. No punts, no settling for a field goal, no turnovers. They didn't even face any 4th downs. A perfect offensive performance because they didn't shut the Patriots out. The defense was not perfect, but the offense was perfect. And the Bills scored 46 points and won the game. And the Patriots fell to the playoffs in 2022. They were 8 and 9, and when you consider some of their really bad losses, like the loss to the Packers, or especially their loss to the Raiders, that I don't want to say is entirely preventable, because it wasn't, but losing in regular time was totally preventable. They could have ran out the clock, but instead, they try to lateral it. Jacoby Myers tries to throw to Mac Jones, but then it gets intercepted by Chandler Jones, and then he stiff-armed Mac. And got a walk-off touchdown for the Raiders. And again, a really bad loss for the Patriots. One that wound up actually keeping them out of the playoffs and allowing the Miami Dolphins in. So, the Patriots, they're in a really tough division. They don't have a good quarterback. They have a good defense. But good defense and a bad quarterback, we saw how that worked out for the Jets. I'm thinking either 7, 10, or 8, 9, and I'm probably going to put them into the D tier. Maybe into the C tier, but I think they're going to be too yucky. They might even finish 6 and 11. I'm thinking the D tier for the New England Patriots. Finally, the Buffalo Bills. What will the Buffalo Bills be accomplishing? I think that they'll be accomplishing a 12 and 5 record. They, again, have a tough schedule, but they're a very good football team. Now, have they ever won a Super Bowl? No, they lost it 4 times in a row in the early 90s. And even though they made the playoffs 5 out of the last 6 years, 17 and 19 involved losses in the wild card. 2020, they made it to the AFC Championship. 21 and 22, they lost in the AFC Divisional Round. 2021 in especially heartbreaking fashion, as the Chiefs were able to get the ball to within field goal range within 13 seconds to send the game to overtime, in which they were able to get an immediate touchdown after winning the coin toss. However, the Buffalo Bills have a lot going for them. They have Josh Allen, who is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You have Josh Allen. Damar Hamlin is healthy now. And based on what they said, I don't see him having any issues in the NFL this year. I don't see that happening largely because of the fact that, largely because of the fact that, they, it's because of the fact that, what's it called? I'm really forgetting. Oh, right. It was just like a freak accident. That's what it was about Damar Hamlin. So, yeah, I ultimately see the Bills having like one of the best situations, and feel like they won't be able to utilize it to their full potential. But I still think the Bills can have a really good season. It's just like it's not going to be like I think it could be like a historically good season, but they can still have like a pretty good season. And sorry that I just spaced out. School finished today. So school finished today. So my brain doesn't want to think anymore. And I'm also like both melting and freezing at the same time. It's kind of weird right now, the weather, because it's only like 68 degrees, but the humidity is almost max with a dew point I think of 65, which means that I'm kind of like in a situation of, well, given what I'm wearing, the sweatshirt and shorts, I'm like in a situation where it's like, okay, the 68 degree temperatures are making me freezing and the 65 degree dew point is making me sweating. So I legitimately don't know how I'm feeling right now. And I think my brain is getting all messed up. Plus, it's like the end of school, but the weather doesn't seem like it. If you've been reading Twitter about that kind of June weather, you'll understand what I'm saying.